We are live. Should we wait a minute? And I'll do my quick introduction while we wait for more people to join us. So, welcome to our very first live webinar. My name is Karen Reddy-Penning, and I am the owner and creator of Monarch Empowerment Coaching. And tonight, I am joined by Matthew Abulafar of APED Canada Incorporated and Renee Morin of EBC Services Incorporated. Hi. So, tonight we're actually going to discuss, and we're going to go over a quick recap of the videos that we just released back in March and April. We're actually going to do this in a question and answer APED Canada Incorporated format, so I hope you brought your questions and you have them ready for us. And we also have some questions that I got by email, so we'll go over those and get those answered for you tonight as well. We're going to go over a quick recap. So the series that we released the last couple of months really took us through just the surface of getting started with your own business and some of the important highlights of running a small business. The first video we had defined what a small business was. For example, a small business is typically defined as 100 or less employees. The types of businesses that there are, and some of the key things to consider when you're starting your business, such as your equipment, startup costs, and things that you would want to consider the types of business which suit your lifestyle better. Our second video, we discussed setting up your home office. We talked about space restrictions, tracking documents, inventory, and time management. Then in our third video, we went over more of the basics of business, so goals for your business, short-term and long-term, the logistics of balancing home and work life, and also some of the things on promoting your business and how you'd want to do that when you first get started. In our fourth video, Matthew took us through the basics of QR codes and how that we can take those and use them to our advantage and leverage QR codes to promote our business. And in our last two videos, Renee did an excellent job of telling us and helping us to see and appreciate why we come to our receipts, what kind of receipts we want to keep and track, as well as our income as well, and also the value of our being prepared for taxes and how to get started on preparing for tax time. So that's just kind of a quick highlight of the 6 videos that were released. And now we'll go into some of our questions that we have. So if you have any questions, make sure you're typing them into the chat box. We're going to see that, and we'll go through any of the questions you put in there. If there's any questions that we don't have time for today, because we're only going to be here about a half hour or so, we'll make sure we send those out in an email to you, and we'll also, if there's enough or too many questions for today, we'll release another video answering some of the key questions. I think we may have lost Renee. She'll be back. Technical difficulties happen every day, right? So we have some questions that were sent by email. I'll go over a couple of those first. And Matthew, since Renee has fallen off for a second, she's joining us right now. Let's go into something real quick that a lot of people ask. That is Pinterest and Instagram. They're both with pictures, and that's all I know about it. So Matthew, what would you say is the biggest difference between Pinterest and Instagram when it comes to marketing and managing your business?
Thanks, Karen. It's a very interesting question that you asked about Pinterest and Instagram. Really, if we look at Pinterest, I actually look at Pinterest as an image version of Twitter. So most people use Pinterest to share their pictures online, and followers would repin those pictures if they are interested in it. And when you repin, that repin action becomes like that. It actually enables people to actually see what was pinned. So when it comes to Pinterest, I refer that as another version of Twitter, but an image version. However, Instagram is another wonderful tool that people just use to take pictures and share those pictures for other people to like. So the methodology the difference between Pinterest and Instagram is your mode of communication. So if you're targeting the younger generation, it might be nice to use Instagram. If you're looking at middle-aged to older, mainly ladies or females, I would recommend people to use Pinterest. This is based on global statistics. But when it comes to marketing, either the two options are very good. But I would say if you're into trying to get your message across to the younger generation, I would say go with Instagram.
Okay, thanks. So that would explain why I like Pinterest over Instagram, because I fit in that older demographic. Awesome. Thanks. So Renee, we had a couple questions come in, actually 3, and they all tie in together. So I'm just going to read them all 3 at the same time that came in. And I think we can probably be able to answer all of them in the same response. So the email that came in was, why do I need to keep my paper receipts if I scan copies? And can I claim an expense if I only have a credit card statement and not an actual paper receipt from the purchase? And the third question that came in line with that as well is, why do I need to write on the receipt what the expense was for and who it was pertaining to?
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about receipts. One of the problems with the current receipts is the waxy paper that is used that is less expensive to go through the printing machines. That can rub off in your hands. So what you want to do is when you have taken one of your clients out for dinner, or you have purchased something for a business expense, or you've attended a seminar and you have incurred hotel charges, meals, etc., you want to annotate in 2 places what that expense was all about. The first would be the back of your receipt, so you would put the date, met with Jamie Brown, conference, Seattle, whatever it might be, and then the amount, and then you sign it. And when you get home, you scan that receipt on both sides. The reason for scanning is to have electronic records available to you, so that if you do submit records to your accountant, or you submit them to Revenue Canada with your return, you have a paper copy to back that up. Over time, that paper copy may fade, but if they can compare the paper copy to the electronic one, they know by looking at certain key points, just as the FBI would look at your fingerprints and look at certain key points on the receipt, they'll know it's a legitimate receipt. Now, when you have been traveling, expensing courses, purchasing materials for your office, and all you have is a credit card receipt, you've still spent that expense, but you may not be able to break down the taxes. You may not know what that is. You can request a copy of the bill, but if you know where you were and you have it in your journal diary, you attended this seminar on this date, these were the costs, you can estimate and back out what your costs would be pre-tax, and then identify your taxes. Yes, you can claim that receipt, but you may be challenged on it if you can't produce the real receipt. Because, for instance, what if you say that the $98 receipt was for office supplies, and you've estimated that X number of dollars were for taxes because you backed it out? What if it turned out that one of those items was a personal item, and it wasn't for your business at all? So that could be a disputed receipt, and it might be rejected by Revenue Canada. So you want to keep your receipts in good order. You want to scan them and keep them by month, organize them by what expense they were, so that you can justify all of your expenses. And that doesn't mean to say that they're all going to be accepted, however. But if you follow the guidelines, you understand what Revenue Canada is requiring you to do, you annotate your receipts, you're in the best possible position to prepare a correct return to support your deductions and your expenses, and to be able to then validate electronically and in paper all of the expenses which you've incurred during your day-to-day business activities.
Thank you. And so it's good to know, because I know that when I first started out 4 or 5 years ago, I kept some credit card receipts or statements, and then I'd keep some receipts, and I didn't know. I ended up claiming a whole lot less than I could have because I didn't have all that documentation. And I rather, especially in the first couple of years, I erred on the side of caution, and I didn't claim anything unless I had a physical receipt for it, because I knew if I got audited, and it happened, I needed to have those receipts for evidence. So I mean, I'm glad I did that, not knowing, being new and not knowing what I was doing in a sole proprietorship. But there's, there's many times, and sometimes we learn the hard.
That's true.
So let's see if we have any other questions here. Okay, so we've got one here. This is a good one, and this is a question actually was asked just not long ago in one of the Facebook groups that I administer, or mediate. So do I need a lot of money to start a business? So this is something I think we all can answer. So I'll tell you from my perspective, do you need a lot of money to start a business? Not necessarily. That being said, it depends on the type of business that you would like to get yourself started. If you're just starting a business that's a multi-level marketing, a direct sale, something like Avon or Tupperware, Steep Tea, something like that, you only need really to start up initially what the cost of that kit is. It could be $150, it could be $500. Generally speaking, those types of businesses are a lot cheaper to start. And there's often monthly costs, so a cost of a website, you know, $10, $20, cost of keeping inventory maybe. But to start, your initial start, if that's how that question is being asked, if that's how I understand it, it can be that low. And then any equipment that you need, for example, for me, I definitely need a computer, there's a cost. Now, if you want to start a franchise, you're going to need a lot more than that, and you may need some financing and that sort of thing. So in my perspective, you don't need a lot of money depending on what you want to do. Also remember how big you start, maybe how long it takes you to really get into a positive cash flow. You could start with a $200 direct sales business. You could very quickly be in a positive cash flow, but is it going to meet your goals of the income that you want? Because all you need to do is make, say, $500, you're in a positive cash flow. But are you where you're looking to be, and how fast can you multiply that? In a franchise, you're going to take 5-7 years before you get into that positive cash flow. You've paid off the loans or anything you need to start, but are you meeting your overall income goals? So you have to take that into perspective as well. That's my take on that question, Renee. What do you think? When it comes to that, how much money do you need to start a business?
I think one of the things, Karen, that you touched on was knowing what your early advance costs would be. And if you identify in your business model and in your business plan how much you think you're going to need, that's very important, because you may qualify for a small business loan, you may not. You may not have the cash flow that you need to go big. And sometimes people think that they have to start big when they start a small business. The biggest investment is time, but if you have to buy a computer if you don't have one, if you have to buy software that you don't have, if you have to do some renovations to your home to accommodate your business, to put your inventory away, those can be costs you don't expect. So one of the main things to do is to find out how much this business might cost you to get started. A lot of small home businesses can be done in a basement room, in a dining room that can be converted. You can save some costs there. When you're greeting customers, you need a business place to work, and you're going to need to have basic expenses. So I think understanding the business you're going into, understanding the startup costs, and being able to manage those startup costs with your budget. You might wait until you have a bit of a nest egg so that that doesn't impact your day-to-day family expenses. And if you can go ahead and it's a business that you'd like to do and you're going to have some support doing it, then by all means, make the choice. But being aware of how much it might cost you initially is often what small business owners forget to do. They forget to look at how much it might cost them to start. And they get very passionate and excited and they want to move forward. And then suddenly it's impacting their family budget. So be very aware of what business you'd really like to do and how much it might cost you, so that there are no surprises. And also, when you start to look at small businesses, do you have to buy a lot of inventory if you're going to be turning over in direct sales? Is that going to be a cost that maybe you didn't anticipate? Maybe you're going to find out that you have to buy X number of dollars of product per week, per month to sell. That might not fit with your budget. So understanding your business is helpful, and being aware of what resources might be there to help you in your community with the small business loan, with any kind of support that's there. Also, if you have any access to small business information centers, that can be a really good place to find out how to write a business plan, how to prepare moving forward, and how much money might be available to you in your normal budget to manage things.
Excellent, thank you. And I see we've had some more people join us, so welcome. We're just getting into our Q&A part of the webinar on small business and discussing some of the questions that are coming in. So if you have any questions, make sure you enter them in the chat box and we'll be sure we get to those tonight, okay? So we'll move on to a couple more questions here. Okay, so here's a good one. I have an opinion on this. And Renee, You have a lot of experience with this too. Why can't I take personal checks, or why shouldn't I? And yeah, so that was the question. I could expand on that a lot, but Renee, what's your take on that?
Well, as a small business owner, you may not even have a business account. You might not have business insurance. You might not have anything other than your family account. What will protect you if that check comes back NSF? There might be a $25 to $50 charge. Your other bills may go unpaid. As a small business person, unless you can afford to have insurance on your cash flow, unless you have a large amount of cash flow, you can't afford the risk. So it's always better to take cash under those circumstances. Even if you know your customers well, it'll just take one NSF check to affect your bank in a negative manner, and then you're having to chase around to get that check for what might be just an innocent error. But it's best to err on the side of caution. If you were an agent, you would automatically have access to credit card or debit or PayPal. So you might be selling product, and the business form might already be able to verify that. And someone could also pay you by direct debit or PayPal right there using their smartphone while you're there. Then you have the money. But with a check, you could incur unnecessary costs that could affect your banking and your cash flow. So it's best when you're just getting started not to take checks at all. When larger companies and organizations receive payments, they generally ask for a credit card, debit, wire transfer. Checks are very rarely accepted now. So it's just best as a small business person to err on the side of caution and ask for cash until you're big enough to take any kind of credit cards. And with each credit card transaction or debit transaction, there is a fee, which you have to build into your cost of sales.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm of the same train of thought. There's very rarely a time where you never have to take a personal check. Never have a check written to you if you don't have to. I know with direct sales, if you do accept checks, they've got to be made to you typically, not the company. And then you pay them when you put in the party or the event, and then it goes to them through your credit card. So it's preferable, even at parties like that, ask your guests. Everybody's got a smartphone pretty much now. Everyone can do online banking, PayPal, EFTs. I mean, you can have that money in your account right away before they've left. If there's an issue, they're still there. Do that, do cash, or if you know you're working your business enough and you feel it's cost effective for you, there's all those apps you can get to pay with credit card. Even there's what's that, Foursquared, I think it's called. There's a few things. So there's so many options, but my top cash, EFT, PayPal, easy, secure, everyone's safe on both ends of it. There's no disputes. Pretty much, you're golden. So that's my take on it. I have, when I first started doing direct sales, taken personal checks. Those I don't do from people unless it's my party that I'm hosting, and it's like family typically, people that I know, that I'm seeing every day and I can hunt down. But even then, it's difficult. I had a check, or I didn't. My sister had a check bounce from a neighbor that was very good friends. I mean, we babysat her kids. You know, they're like family. We called them aunt and uncle, and her check bounced. She just happens to be somebody who doesn't keep good track of her banking. And we had to hunt her down. And it was farming season, or crop season. We were pulling in the crops. I mean, they're out in the field. It was very difficult to track that down on top of the fees that you have to pay. And then it was frustrating for her. So if you can avoid it and you just find a way to say no and not feel bad about it, it's a business. Okay, so what else do we have in here? Do we have any new questions? Okay, so here's one. Matthew. This one I definitely am not qualified to answer. Matthew, so what is SEO? What does that mean, and how does it work? What are some? We didn't really touch on that in our videos when it came to marketing. We probably said the word once. So we have someone here asking. So what does that mean? How does it work? How can they utilize that?
Thanks, Karen. Well, SEO actually is a short form for search engine optimization, and it is one method in which websites can get indexed within Google. So it is actually a system in which search engines are able to extract information about your website and have that information placed on the search engine, so that when people search for a specific keyword, for example, maybe maybe they're looking for um, tips for payments or tips for taxes or anything concerning hotels, best hotels in the region. What Google will do, or what Bing or Yahoo will do, is that they're going to list the results on the first page or on pages within the search engine. So the what people are looking for, the dream is for their websites to appear on the first page of Google when those keywords are used. So when it comes to a website that has their contents or their pages listed on the first page, one good thing is visibility. It means that anybody who's searching for a specific product or item would actually find your business available within the search engines, and they will most likely click on your website and will get the products from you. So that translates to what they call organic traffic or free traffic to your site. So SEO might sound a bit technical, but it is one of the benefits of having a website. If you have a website and you actually do little homework to ensure that your keywords are correctly defined, chances are much higher that you will get a revenue stream via people who you don't even know. One experience I had about 4 years ago was that I was actually selling tablet PCs, and I used to rank very high in Google searches for specific tablet PCs that people were looking for. So during the holiday season, like Christmas, Boxing Day, and even Black Friday, most people would actually be directed to my website because my videos, my websites, and my images were all indexed on the first page of Google. So that was a benefit for me. I didn't need to search for new clients up and down. So that is basically, in a nutshell, what SEO is all about. It's called search engine optimization, and is the ability of your websites, your videos to be indexed by Google and other search engines for it to be available within the search engines, preferably on the first page of Google or Bing or Yahoo.
Awesome, thanks. And that is actually probably a very good topic that we can do one of our future webinars on, is how do you get to that first page and how do you get yourself within that first page and keep yourself up there. So in the future, we'll discuss that in one of our webinars that we release, and with some instructions, some detail, because there's definitely an art to it, per se, and it's easy and not difficult once you know what you're doing, like you said, with those keywords. So we'll discuss that in more detail, because I think we could talk on that for probably, I know we could take at least half an hour, probably longer, just for that one topic. Okay, so what else do we have here? Okay, so here's one. Can I run my business from my home, out of my home? So I'm going to say yes. Yes, you can. How do I know this? Because I do this. This is my office right here. It's a room in my house. My kids are out there with their dad, getting ready for bed. We're in our house. I also meet clients here when they come here for coaching and for consulting. I meet people elsewhere as well, so it's not just here in my office. I go out and I'll meet people in their offices. We've gone to rented spaces before, and we've met in public spaces. So, for example, depending on the type of meeting or what we're doing, we'll go meet over at a Starbucks or a small, a cafe or something. And so, Matthew, how about you? How does running a home business? Is that something that you do?
Thanks, Karen. And of course, yes. It's wonderful to actually run your business from your home. And I actually run it from my basement. And I'm actually in my basement. And for me, like, for instance, I have internet access. Once you have internet access that you might use for other stuff, maybe in the family, you could take advantage of your internet access to get work done in the office. So, I mean, it's not difficult at all to actually set up a business from home and run it from home, because some of the materials that you would use, you're actually using it anyway, like the internet, for instance. So yes, it's something that I would encourage small business owners to do, because it's much cheaper than renting a place like a store, much cheaper.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of pros to it. And how about you, Renee? Where's your office?
It's in my home. I have a small office in my home, and I keep all of my business information here, do my consulting here, and do other work that I need to do. So I can close the door, and I can keep our pets outside, and I can work any hours that I wish. And my information is private, it's secure, it's confidential, and it doesn't go anywhere else in the house. It stays right in the office, which is as it should be. Now, I don't have any inventory, so if you have someone who does have inventory and sales, they need a secure place to store that inventory where it will be safe and protected from the elements if there are temperature changes. And we did a webinar on that, so we did talk extensively about that. But you can very easily run your small business from your home without interfering in family life, and be able to close that door and have your business hours and time with your clients, and then get back to your regular normal life. But you need that inspiration.
Yeah, and how nice it is to save that time driving even, right? A 10 or 20 minute, or some of us having an hour-long commute, to jobs, and to be able to take 10 minutes or 5 minutes and get your coffee, get what you need, get your stuff together. You're already at your desk, you're already working. You can get an extra hour of productive time back into your day if you're working from home. If you're managing your time, that is. So that actually leads into our next question. What are some tips on how I can manage my time effectively? Well, this is my favorite subject, and I can talk for hours on it, so I'm going to try not to. So we mentioned this in video 2, I believe, and we didn't really expand on it. We just said that it was important when you're starting up to manage your time effectively. It's a really important topic. It's so important that we're actually going to do a webinar on it in our next series. So one of the key things is you need to be disciplined, you need to be organized with your schedule. Have a day timer or a calendar. I like an actual physical day timer. I color code my day timer, and I'm not kidding, I schedule in family time. So especially when you have a home office, you need to make sure you've got those boundaries, and not just business time, family time, personal time, however you categorize it. You need to track what time you're using that is what I call money-making or profit-producing activity. So personal development, for example, could be considered business time. Is it profit-producing activity? No. Making sales calls, making calls to former customers, making calls to prospective customers. That's your profit-producing activity. That's what's going to make you that income and make your business a business. So track what you're doing, and make sure that what you're doing, take a look, evaluate that every week, every day, even at first, and make sure what you're doing is actually going to be moving your business forward. Tracking your time in a calendar also helps when it comes to audits. You want to show that you are doing business, you're running a business. So if you have those appointments in your calendar, when you have your receipt from Starbucks, for example, and your gas mileage for a meeting, and you've got that in your calendar, it's just one more thing that you have to back that up. So it's important to do that. Managing your time, you need to decide for yourself how much time in a week you're going to be spending on your business. So, a franchise, for example, it's sort of dictated for you because you've got to be there full time. If you're managing out of your office like I am, I can decide if I want to put in an hour a day, an hour a week, 10 hours a week. But the key is whatever you decide, you be consistent with it and you do it. So don't think about, I'm going to do 10 hours this week and then next week just do 2, because what's going to happen is your business is going to look like a hobby and it's going to react like a hobby. You're not going to have business results. So if you're running a business, regardless what it is, you need to be consistent. You need to be putting out that production, that activity. Track it and put yourself in, discipline yourself, treat yourself like an employee. How would you be if this was a job? This is your job, so make sure you're treating it like a business. Regardless if your business costs you $200 to start up or $200,000 to start up, treat it like $1 million business and you'll eventually get those results. So that's my quickness on some time management. Do you guys, Renee, do you have anything that you want to add about that?
I think just the most important thing is just be disciplined and reschedule if you need to. So if you have your planned time and an event occurs, like an emergency, reschedule the time, but don't lose that time. So just be disciplined about what is personal time, business time, full-time work time, part-time. Make sure that you have everything in your calendar that you can have access to, and move things forward if you need to. Don't disregard them. Don't let them fall to the side. And just be as disciplined and respectful of all of the participants that are on your calendar, because there could be quite a few. So you do the very best you can. And don't forget to schedule personal time in for you to rest.
Yeah, and personal time is important. You might not think it is, but it is. You do not want to burn out either. Matthew, do you have any tips for us on time management?
One or two things. One, for small and home business owners, one of the challenges we face is we try to squeeze everything into a little time space. So my recommendation would be to use your smartphone, use your laptop to keep a journal of what you intend to do and ensure that you allocate the right time for them. One of the challenges we face is the inability to sleep on time, and most business owners end up going to bed at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and wake up at 6 to run. We should try as much as possible to determine what we can do in the day and be firm about it so that we can have enough time for our families, have enough time even to sleep. Because if not, our lives could end very short. So now we might advise, try as much as possible to dedicate your business time to your business and ensure that you don't go on Facebook and spend 3 hours looking for stuff. Be very, very conscious of the fact that social media can also be harmful. In as much as this is a tool, it can also be very harmful in the sense that we might spend a lot of time on social media doing things that we're not supposed to do. That is my little advice.
Thanks. We're hitting that half-hour mark, so we're getting pretty close. I think we'll try to keep this wrapped up within the next 10 minutes or so. And then any questions we don't get to, we'll send out some answers for you guys. So there's a couple more on here that I think we should get to. And one here, Renee. This one's a quick one. So how long do we need to keep our tax records for?
Oh, that's a great question. Federally, it's 7 to 8 years. If you're a normal, regular company, if you're an incorporated company, it's forever. Keep those records as long as the business is in business, and then years afterward. The best thing to do if you're a small business owner is get to know your local, regional, provincial governments. Get to know your municipality. What are the licensing rules? What are the registration rules? What are the taxation rules of your province? Because each province will have record retention that varies. You may have some that are 5, some that are 8 years. So learn what's required in your region so that you can follow the law appropriately. But federally, if you were an incorporated company, you keep your records forever. So when you dissolve your company, you have to have records of closure, and you may need to keep those after you contact Revenue Canada that you've closed them. But just make sure that you keep good records year after year. And if you understand what your municipal, regional, and provincial requirements are as well, you'll be in good stead whether you sell your business, whether you close your business, whether you will your business to a member of your family or a partner. You will have done your due diligence by knowing what the law requires. And it's fairly easy to adhere to the law once you know what it is. If you don't know what it is and you make an educated guess, someone may end up paying penalties or fines. So it's best to find out what the requirements are in your region and follow those. And be sure to keep as good records as you can until your business closure, and then know what your requirements are after that. But if you destroy your records and it turns out that you needed to keep them for, let's say, 5 years for your province and then, let's say, 7 years federally, err on the side of caution and make it 8 years. Protect yourself. But at least you're not prematurely destroying records, and you can get a lot of information from all levels of government about what documents are required to be kept and how they're required to be kept. So it's worth taking a few minutes to find that out, to protect your business and protect your family income.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent. So I think our last question, we'll wrap up, and this is one for all of us here. So the question that was sent in was, can I have a business while having a full-time job elsewhere? So my quick and short answer is absolutely. So for example, me, I have a full-time job. I work Monday to Friday, have a full-time day job. I go in very early in the day. I also take half a day a week, and I volunteer at my son's school. So I actually work extra hours 4 days of the week so that one day I can take half a day off. And then I work my business part-time. And of course, I have 2 little kids under 5, so we're busy. But absolutely, you can. If that's what you want to do until you get your business to where that's full-time for you, if that's your goal, 100% you can. So the one thing, though, when you have a job, I recently, at my job, for example, we signed a conflict of interest document, a waiver, saying that we are not doing anything that it could be construed or perceived even as a conflict of interest. So we had to go through this checklist. It's not anything to do with the type of work I do. When you have a business and you have a job, though, the key is when you're at your work, you're being paid by somebody for your time. You do not want to be doing business while you're at work getting paid for time to be doing the job, not the business. So don't be going online or making sales calls or following up with people while you're at the job getting paid that rate by somebody else. That, number one, is definitely grounds for dismissal in any kind of job that you have. But number two, you're basically stealing time. You may not even be realizing it, but that's kind of what you're doing. So make sure you're maintaining integrity and being honest with your job as well as your business, right? You want to set an example for others who may, eventually, even if they're not now, they'll eventually, be looking up to you and seeing you as an example of how you got started, how you made your way to success. You want to be able to show and pave that path in a way that they can follow. So yeah, that's my take on it. Yes, just respect your employer, respect their time. And so Matthew and Renee, how about you guys? Do you guys just have your business, or how did you get started and work out of a job? Matthew, do you want to?
Matthew, go ahead. Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. So yes, I have a full-time job. So I have to discipline myself to remain focused on my full-time job till 5. Once it's 5 o'clock or during the weekends, that's when I actually focus on my part-time affairs, my part-time business, and it does work. There's definitely going to be challenges. We're human. There's going to be challenges. We just have to discipline yourself and ensure that you don't double dip. And if you double dip, that could land you in very terrible trouble. So my advice, just as what Karen mentioned, respect your employer while you're at work. When you're away from work, at the same time, don't sell company information to anybody if you're trying to, impress them that you're working somewhere else. After work, focus on your business and you'll be fine. Thank you.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's just a matter of respecting and giving trust and receiving trust. And if you have integrity, then you don't mix your full-time job with your part-time business. You keep them separate. And that's just giving the respect that you offer your employer that they have offered you, and returning that trust. And it's really not fair to do your small business during your main business hours. So it's all about respect, integrity, courtesy, trust, and separating the two. Just the same as when my office door closes, that's my small business. I'm not dealing with anything else. I'm just focused on that. And if I'm working from home for my full-time job, I'm working at my full-time job. I'm not doing my business during my working hours. So it's just a matter of respect and understanding that maybe at some point our small business could become our full-time business, but in the meantime, we need to respect our employers and move forward with that very clearly in mind so that the two don't overlap. and there's no conflict that can result.
Yeah, exactly. And on that quick note, just a quick note when it comes to conflict, if you have a business that you think could be perceived as a conflict, don't wait for your employer to come to you. And it may not be, but if it could be, for example, I work in the healthcare industry. So if I was doing massage, let's say I do massage therapy, that could be, just because I work in healthcare, construed as potentially a conflict of interest. I think the best thing to do in a case like that, and that's not what I do, but is to go to your employer and say, look, just so you know, this is what I do part-time as a business from home, and is there a conflict? Make sure you have it documented, and that way you're being transparent, and they know, and they're aware, so that that perception is lessened, or the chance of it. But if there is a conflict, you know, there's often times where you can negotiate, okay, well, that's fine as long as, right? And that's why some people, especially people in management positions, at my old job, I had a contract. These are the things I was allowed to do, and these are the things I wasn't allowed to do. I couldn't go in and talk to the customers and clients that we had in marketing in the job I had when I was a manager, because I'm supposed to be trying to get them as marketing clients for that business, not for my business. So, and sometimes it's really difficult when that's similar to what you do, so that's where you have to be really careful and take it upon yourself to go and have that, take that approach. It's going to do you more good than harm by you taking that step, and you'll be respected and looked to for that. So I just wanted I just thought of that and wanted to mention that. So I think we're getting pretty close. You know, we're hitting that 45-minute mark almost. So we don't want to take up your time too much tonight. It's pretty late for some of you down east. And we're going to wrap up. So thanks for you guys. Thanks those of you that joined us tonight. We'll do a replay of this probably, I think, in the next week or so. We'll release that date. And make sure you guys follow us. We're all on Facebook. You can find Matthew at APED Canada Incorporated. You can find Renee at EBC Services. And you can look me up on Facebook as well at Monarch Empowerment Coaching. So look us up, follow us there, and you'll get kept up to date on when we release our new video series and any live webinars we have in the near future. So thanks a lot for sticking around tonight, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.